Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how you can create this beautiful looking landscape here in Blender from start to finish. So let's begin this tutorial. So let's first create this arc here, and this is pretty simple. So what we have to do is Shift A and add a mesh and a plane and go to edit mode, select everything and subdivide it a couple of times, maybe 3 or 4 times. Then we can go to this face select here and select a couple of faces like this. And next we can insert it, so I to insert. Right click, loop tools and circle. And you have to activate your loop tools up here under edit and preferences and loop tools. And let's go to our circle select with C. And we can select these faces here and faces. Next we can rotate this whole thing. So select everything in RX and 90. And let's go to front view and out of edit mode, and you can select it and bring it to here. And next we can select these kind of vertices here and E to extrude them and Z like this. And we don't need these faces here, these vertices, so X and vertices. And you can select them by holding Alt and clicking these edges here, and Alt and Shift to select the other ones. And we can select everything in E to extrude this. Next we can create this big window here. So we can add a loop cut, Ctrl R to add a loop cut and Ctrl B to bevel this. Something about this maybe. And we can go to our face select and select these faces here. And don't forget the inner ones. We can also go to our X-ray mode to see it better if you have selected the correct ones. And this one is too much. So just these ones here. And right click, loop tools and bridge. And now we have a window like this. I don't like how this looks, so let's go back and do another take. So we can see and deselect these ones here. And also this one. And right click, loop tools and bridge. And now we have this kind of window. We can also select everything and X to make it a bit more another shape. And next what we can do is create these benches. And they're pretty simple. So let's go to front view and Shift and right click to move our cursor to here, and we can select the plane and go to edit mode, select everything and make it smaller, and also smaller on the x-axis like this. Next we can go to our edge select and select this edge and E and Z to make it a bit like this, and E and Z again, and move this a bit to the back. And let's go to front view and E again, and we can give it some shape, maybe like this. And next we can bevel this whole thing. So we can bevel this edge, for example, to make it a bit rounder. Something like this. And right click, shade smooth. Next we can give it a subdivision. And we have to add some more edges. And maybe one here. Let's select this whole edge by holding Alt and Shift and clicking these. And they have these round kind of shapes. We can select them and Shift D and P selection. Next we can select this, what we extruded, and right click, convert to a curve, convert to curve. And we can go to this curve properties down here, this green one, and we can go to geometry and bevel, and we can give it some depth like this, and also shade it smooth, and Ctrl and 2 to give it a subdivision. And next we can just copy this and make it a bit bigger, and also make it smaller on the y-axis, so that it fits to our model. And maybe this one is not really that great looking. So what we can do is bring this more to the back. So select both of these ones and G and X to move them a bit to here. We can select it again, Shift D and S to make it bigger. And let's go to top view, that we see it better. And the same process, so S and Y to make it smaller. And next we have to delete these ones here, so let's select this one first. And you can select these both in X and vertices, and also this one. So let's select these ones by holding Shift and X and vertices. And next we can move these also down, so let's move these down. You can go to front view and G and Z. And also these ones, of course, because it looks a bit off. So like this. And the other ones, so we can select both, go to edit mode, and we can select these ones first and move them down, and also here. So let's go to 1 and extrude them like so. Maybe also these ones here, just so that it looks better when we bring it to the walls, like this. So let's select everything and Alt and E, extrude faces along normals. And don't forget to check your face orientation, so it may be off. So you can go here to face orientation, and everything is correct except this building here. So let's select it, everything, and Shift and N to correct the normals. You can also give it a bevel. So what we can do is select everything and go to select sharp edges, Ctrl B to give it a small bevel. And what is not great is that these two are too close together. So if we bevel them, they're not great. They're overlapping like this, which is not good. So what we have to do is go to Edge Select and select this edge by holding Shift, Alt and Shift and clicking this. And also here. And double G to move this up. So something like this. And now we can bevel it much better. And also these ones are too close, so we also have to select these ones. So let's select this first. So as you can see, we have like this double ones and they're too near together, so we can't bevel this. So double G to move this to here. And also on the other side. And now we can bevel this whole thing. So what we can do is go to select and select sharp edges. And what we have to do is to bevel this whole thing. So let's give it a bevel, like a small one, and bring the shape to 1. And next, this is not really good. So what we have to do is change the mitre outer to arc. And now it is much better if you give it a subdivision. And next we can also make this one on the wall. So let's first select this bench. Go to 1 and G and X to move this to here. And it is too big, we have to make it smaller. So S to make it smaller and change this back to median point. So period key and median point. And S to scale it down. And move it here and G and Y. And it is a bit too high, so let's move it down. Shift and D and move this to here. And don't forget to save your file, guys. So once we have these benches, we also have to add like this on the wall. It's pretty simple. Select a point, Shift S, cursor to select it. And we can select a plane, R, Y, and 90. Go to edit mode, select everything, and S, scale it down. And we can't see it, so let's go to X-ray mode. S and Y, can move it to here. And I, maybe can do in bevel, so Ctrl B to give it a small bevel. Select everything in E to extrude. And we can select this edge here, Ctrl B to give it a small bevel. And we can select these faces by holding Alt and click on this edge and E to extrude it inwards. Shift D to copy and move this over to here. And next we can create this grassy kind of texture in the ground and also this kind of river here. We can edit plane and scale this up. We can also subdivide this up a couple of times and we can go to vertex select and select a vertex. And we can go to our proportional editing and set this to like sphere or root or something that you like. Let's leave this at smooth and G and Z to move this up and select some random points and make like a landscape kind of shape. And we can scale it up, shade smooth, S and Z. And next, let's bring it to the background. I think it would be a wise idea to open a new window and a camera so we can see it better, what we are doing. So let's add a camera and move this to here. Alt and R to reset the rotation, R, X, and 90. Go to 0 and here as well. And T to hide this menu and also the overlays. And we have to also change the format. So 1080, or let's see what kind of format. So maybe a portrait one, 1080 and 1350. So maybe here, and we can change this 65. And let's also move the camera. So Shift S and cursor to world origin. And the camera, Shift S, selection to cursor. And let's move this to the back in G and Z. to here maybe. I think it's great. Next we can see much better what's going on. So what we can do is make this smaller. It's a bit too big. And I also think we have to make this more down. And let's also rotate this a little bit. And we have to make this river. So what we have to do is let's select this one and E to extrude this down. Something about this, and E and Y, and E and Z, and E to extrude, and Y. And now we have like a river kind of shape, and also these hills here. But what we have to do is bring this a bit higher. So let's bring this higher until it like touches this building here. We have to add a water as well, of course. So let's create this one. Select this edge and Shift D, P selection. Select everything in E and G and Y to move this to here. You can also move this a bit so we don't have like this kind of gaps here. Move this a bit down. G and Z. We can also bevel this edge. I think it is maybe a bit too sharp. So let's bevel this. And a couple of loop cuts. And now it looks pretty nice, I think. And what we have to do next is also create these kind of cubes here. Or what we can do is also add like different kind of objects. So you can add like whatever you want. So just being creative and maybe searching here on BlenderKit. I think what I will add instead of cubes is like these spheres. So mesh and a sphere, UV sphere, and we can make it smaller and a bit up and shade smooth. Once you added your objects to this hill here, what we can do next is add this grass here. So this is also pretty simple. So what we have to do is add a particle system, so here, and a plus icon, and change it to hair. And next we can go to this render, and we have to change this from path to object. So let's go down here to this window and change this to asset browser. And I have this plant library. You can just download it from the Blender Market website. And I can link it below if you want to download it as well. And next we can just type in grass. And we can just choose one that we like. Maybe this grassy clump or this one here. Next we can also choose another one so that we don't have the same. So let's choose also this one so that we have 3 different ones. And select everything and new collection and name it grass. And we can select this ground and go to our object, and we have to change it to collection and change our collection the grass one. And as you can see, we already have the grass scattered here, but I think we have to add some more loop cuts here because as you can see it looks very off. So let's add some more loop cuts like this, like a bunch. As you can see, it looks much better. What we can do is also subdivide it a couple of times. So let's subdivide it one more time and select this grass, and we can go to pick random. So what we can do is go to this render and we can change the scale. So let's scale this up, but not too big, something like this, maybe 8.3. And we don't have enough grass, so what we have to do is add some more. So we can either go to this number here or we can go to the children. I think children is much better. So let's go to simple. We can look how this looks. You can either go to simple or interpolated. I think interpolated looks a bit better. I don't know why. And we can change the number, but don't add too much children. Otherwise your report is very laggy and it's not great. And it can crash. So don't forget to save your file, guys. And I think it is time to add some materials so that you can see what is going on. So let's put this number down to 5. Just to be like sure it is not crashing. And change this up here to this rendered view and here to the material view. And we have to add the sky like here. So let's go to our world and change this to environment texture and open your sky texture. I can link one below if you want to use the same. So we can go to shading editor and change this to world. And click our sky texture and Ctrl T. And you have to activate your node wrangler in order to work. So what we can do is rotate on the Z, and let's add the texture to the bench first. So let's go to this one here, to the glass texture, and change this back to object and new, and name this glass. And let's bring the transmission all the way up. And also let's make this very bright, and the roughness to maybe a 0.2. And here it looks very clear, so what we can do is add a light path, so Shift A and light path, and camera ray to alpha. And I think now it looks much better. And also here, so let's select this one, Control L, and link materials. And next we can make these ones metallic, so new and metal. And the metallic all the way up, and the roughness down to maybe a 0.3. And the color has to be a bit darker. And we can select the other ones. So let's select all of these. And lastly, the one with the material, Control L, and link materials. And also these ones have to be metallic as well. So let's select them. And the one with the material, Control L, link materials. We can also give it like some color if you want. I think it looks much better if you give it like a bluish kind of color. Maybe something about this looks pretty cool. And also the building has some kind of plaster kind of texture. I can link one below and you can use the same. So let's go to this building and we have to add some seams. So let's add our seams. So go to edge select sharp edges, right click, mark seam. And you can add a texture and name it plaster. And once we have our texture with Control T, what we can do is select everything and you unwrap conformal. And don't forget to apply the scale, so Control A and scale. And it is too big as you can see, so let's make this smaller. Or let's make this bigger. Maybe something about this. 4.5 is nice. And you can also change the color if you want, so we can add a hue and saturation node. And plug this in between the node and the base color. And here you can change the saturation of your node. And also the values, so you can make it darker or brighter. And I also think the grass is not really that nice looking. You can also change the look of the grass. I think it looks too dark. So what we can do is go to the grass texture and the principled BSDF. And if you go down, here you can see the hue and saturation and you can add these, you can change these values here. And the grass looks much nicer. And also maybe not as much kind of saturation, so 7.5 is nice. So let's go to this texture here, the water texture, and add new and name it water. And next let's change some color. And if you don't want to make a water material yourself, you can also go to Blender Kit and search for one. So we can type in water. Type in water and here you can change it to the materials. Here you can just choose the water texture, so maybe this one, water liquid, and drag this in. And as you can see, we added the water and shade smooth. You can also extrude this, so let's select everything and E to extrude. And select everything and Shift and N to recalculate the normals. And for these spheres, we can add this kind of mirror texture. So just pretty simple. Just the metallic up and the roughness down. Maybe a bit more roughness, 0.2. We can also add a sun. And don't forget to go out of this grass collection. So let's click this collection and Shift A and light and the sun. And move to some random place and R and X and R and Y. And you can rotate the sun a little bit until you have like this kind of light coming in and make it brighter. And once you're happy with everything, what we can do is check the render settings. So I'm at cycles and 300 samples is enough. And maybe you can leave this denoise on. And let's go to performance and use tiling, persistent data, AGX and very high contrast. And next you can just go to render and render image. And once the render is finished, it will look something like this. And I think it looks pretty cool. It shouldn't look exactly like in the reference, just do your own thing and maybe some kind of different grass or different kind of colors. And yeah guys, that's the tutorial and I hope you could enjoy it and I see you in the next one. Bye!